Next up at position 9, we have a fight in the welterweight division between Nordine Taleb and Oliver Enkamp. Nordine Taleb was the favorite at minus 390, with the comeback on Oliver Enkamp at plus 290. I did place a 1 unit bet on the favorite Nordine Taleb to win 0.255 units, and he did win, and so it resulted in a win for me of 0.255 units. This fight was interesting. There's an angle. My reasons for betting on Nordine Taleb were basically that he has 6 fights in the UFC, and his opponent has 0. And anytime you get a veteran versus a rookie or a fighter making their debut, it's a very good it's a good place to start, with the advantage of the person with the octagon experience over the person with none. Oliver Enkamp is also very young. His nickname is the Future, and he's obviously a promising prospect. But in this case, his is making his UFC debut against a veteran like Nordine Taleb. He definitely is at the disadvantage, simply because he doesn't have that octagon experience. It's a real thing. You can fight outside the UFC, and until you actually fight in the UFC, you're not prepared for. Well, it's not that you're not prepared. You're at a disadvantage. So I did decide to bet on Nordine Taleb, and he did win. The fight played out pretty much like I expected it, which was Nordine Taleb just would show his UFC experience and just kind of have the edge on in the little areas, what to do, when to do it. Enkamp looked good. He's got a long frame. He's young. He's pretty athletic. He looked like Wonder Boy. He had a karate style, and clearly can land long range strikes. He looked pretty good as well in the clinch. He did get taken down, but he seemed like he was pretty competent in all areas. But he just lost the exchanges to the veteran Nordine Taleb. So my bet on the favorite Nordine Taleb, 1 unit to win 0.255 units, resulted in a win of 0.255 units. Next up at position number 8, we have a fight in the welterweight division between Abdul Razak Alhassan and Omari Wolverine Akhmedov. The favorite Alhassan came in at minus 228. The comeback on Akhmedov plus 185. I placed a 2-unit bet on the favorite Alhassan to win 0.877 units, and it did result in a loss of 2 units. My reasons for betting on Alhassan were that he had, I believe, 7 fights, and all of them resulted in first-round knockouts, and he looked really impressive. He had a good strategy for implementing what the strengths of his style were, where he'd basically just get his opponent back against the fence and unload on them. His opponent, Omari Akhmedov, is a Dagestani fighter, and he's pretty tough, but he has a bad chin. So I figured the combination of a power puncher who had finished all of his fights in the first round versus a guy with a suspect chin, warranted a bet on Alhassan. But in this case, there is sort of the opposite angle of that, which is this guy has never been out of the first round. So if Akhmedov can survive the first round, well, we don't know what we're going to see in round number 2. And it's possible that whatever weaknesses that Alhassan may have that were never exposed because he never went out of the first round would become evident here. And Akhmedov could, in fact, win a decision. And as it turned out, the reverse angle from what I thought was the one that worked. The fight played out in that reverse angle vein. Basically, Akhmedov was backed up against the fence, but he was throwing power to get some respect from Alhassan and not prevent him from just keeping in the position that he wanted to just unload on Akhmedov. He did a good job throwing power and then getting off the fence after that. And the first round, in addition to that, he just has a power double leg and he used it. So he backed him off and threw some power shots, and then Alhassan would come back and he would move forward, and then Omari Akhmedov would drop levels and power double him. And the first one in the first round was their typical, prototypical power double, where he basically ran across, he grabbed him and ran at least halfway across the octagon to get him down. So I chose the wrong angle on this fight, and my bet on the favorite Alhassan, 2 units to win, 0.877 units, was in fact a loss of 0.877 units. Next up at position 7, we have a fight in the bantamweight division. Pedro the Young Punisher Munhoz versus Damian Webster Stasiak. Pedro Munhoz was the favorite at minus 719, with a comeback on Stasiak at plus 505. I did bet on the favorite Pedro Munhoz, 2 units to win, 0.278 units, and it resulted in a win of 0.278 units for me. This fight was interesting, and Pedro Munhoz got bet up pretty severely, up to 719, and I thought that line was a little bit off, but I did think Pedro Munhoz would win this fight, and my reasons for thinking that were basically Pedro Munhoz is a really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, and he's very active on the feet, and he comes forward and comes forward and comes forward, and the advantages of that are that he's doing what the judges want, and he's the aggressor, and he's the one pushing the fight, and it's pretty successful for him. Of course, it has its drawbacks, which is that he does kind of come forward with his chin kind of exposed, and at a certain point he'll encounter a fighter who can clip his chin, and he'll be in trouble at that point. But I thought that he would win this fight because of his stylistic advantage, that if you take him down, he's really good on the ground, and if you fight him on the feet, he's going to use his round-winning, judge-pleasing type of style and just get right in your face for the entire fight. And this fight played out pretty much as I thought it would, with Pedro Munhoz just marching down Damian Stasiak and just keeping right in his face and just continuous pressure, and he landed the better strikes. He did very well and especially when in the pocket, when they were disengaging, he would throw a hook and connect, and he just was superior on the feet. Damian Stasiak did pretty well, but Pedro Munhoz is the superior fighter, and even at the bet up line of minus 719, he did the job. So my bet on the favorite Pedro Munhoz, 2 units to win 0.278 units, did result in a win of 0.278 units. Next up, we have a light heavyweight fight. Misha Cirkunov versus Volkan Oezdemi. The favorite Misha Cirkunov came in at minus 400. Come back on the underdog Volkan Oezdemi plus 325. I did bet on the favorite Misha Cirkunov. Put 2 units down to win 0.50 units, and I did lose, and so this fight resulted in a loss of 0.50 units for me. Misha Cirkunov is a really good fighter, and I was very impressed with what he did against Nikita Krylov in his last fight. He avoided the dangerous strikes of Nikita Krylov by just staying outside and using a little distance, and then he actually clipped Nikita Krylov and then finished him. And so my reasons for picking this were that I thought Misha Cirkunov would do the same thing and avoid the strikes of his opponent, who was a dangerous striker, in this case Volkan Oezdemi. Did really well against OSP, and he jumped from unranked to ranked number 5, I believe. And I thought that he was going to lose because I didn't see. I saw Cirkunov avoiding the power of Oezdemi and eventually taking him down. And once he got him down, used his considerable advantage on the floor to choke him out rather quickly. And Volkan Oezdemi, good fighter, very powerful, but we haven't seen him really tested as far as his ground game goes, and I thought that Misha Cirkunov would be the one to test him and that he would fail. However, so those are my reasons for picking Misha Cirkunov in this fight. However, the way the fight played out was I was not expecting it. Misha Cirkunov just rushed in with his face forward and his chin sticking out, and he was doing a running flurry on Oezdemi, and he was connecting, and he was doing well, except that when he hit the fence, Oezdemi pivoted and hit him right behind the ear with a short shot and just took Misha Cirkunov right out. It was unexpected, and we have seen examples of people running forward before. Of course, maybe the most famous one was Vitor Belfort against Wanderlei Silva. In that fight, though, with the first punch, Vitor Belfort stunned Wanderlei Silva, and Wanderlei Silva was running, stumbling backwards, and Vitor Belfort was landing punches the whole way. Several examples in more recent fights are Ryan Bader versus Glover Teixeira, and we have Fabricio Verdun versus Stipe Miocic, and maybe the most prominent one recently was Derek Brunson versus Robert Whittaker. And when you run forward throwing punches, there's a good chance that you're going to get caught and knocked out. And that's exactly what happened. And Volkan Oezdemi showed that he's for real, and he took what Cirkunov gave him and knocked him out. So my bet on the favorite Misha Cirkunov, 2 units to win 0.50 units, was a loss, and I ended up with a deficit of 0.50 units for the fight.